I pushed open the glass door to Summit Auto Group that Monday morning in Austin, the humid Texas air still clinging to my blouse from the short walk across the lot. The showroom smelled like fresh leather and floor polish, but something felt wrong immediately. No cheerful greetings from the sales team, just the low hum of panic. Screens at the service desk refused to load. Phones rang endlessly into the void, and sales reps paced like they'd lost their scripts. My keycard hit the reader with the usual swipe. Red light. No click. Nothing. I tried again, feeling that familiar knot tighten in my chest, the one that comes when years of invisible work suddenly vanish. Brandon Ellis, the sales director with his perfectly pressed vest and rehearsed smile, stood at reception with arms folded. No hello. No small talk. Just, "You missed the party, Emily. Greg says it shows disrespect. We're heading in a new direction." His tone was flat, calculated, like he'd practiced it in the mirror. I felt heat rise to my face, but I kept it locked down. That party, the 25th anniversary celebration of Summit Auto, had overlapped exactly with a major quarterly system sync and audit I'd scheduled 2 months earlier. The one that kept our financing matrix from collapsing mid-deal, prevented payroll errors that could trigger tax issues, and ensured VIN registrations flowed without hiccups. I'd emailed the calendar. Brandon had replied with a thumbs-up emoji. Sounds good. But once the string quartet, champagne towers, and custom napkins with Greg Harlan's face arrived, the woman keeping the entire operation breathing became inconvenient. I didn't argue in the break room. I walked straight to Greg's office, the oversized mahogany desk where he'd once called me Summit's best investment. He didn't offer a seat. "You disrespected the family," he said, voice dripping with that fake paternal disappointment. 25 years. And you couldn't show up for one night? No mention of the overtime I'd logged from hospital beds after my surgery 2 years back. No acknowledgement of the nights I patched the orchestration platform alone while everyone else celebrated holidays. Just loyalty wrapped in syrupy guilt. I stood there absorbing it, the weight settling like lead in my stomach. This wasn't about the party. It was about optics, about a dealership drunk on its own family narrative while ignoring the backbone. I left without slamming the door. But I wasn't walking away empty-handed. Years earlier, as the only woman leading tech infrastructure in a male-dominated dealership world, I'd learned to protect my work legally and quietly. The central orchestration platform, handling inventory, leasing, payroll timing, delivery syncing, credit matrices. Everything I'd structured under a limited stewardship agreement. Annual renewal required active acknowledgement from leadership. Platform stewardship remained mine until properly transferred. They'd ignored the emails, the reminders, too busy with swag jackets and bourbon fountains. Before leaving, I slid a single cream envelope across Brandon's desk. Clean block text on the front. Systems stewardship transfer, 50 hours. Inside, the one-page reversion clause, in the absence of acknowledgement or transfer confirmation. Operational sync privileges expire exactly 50 hours from steward termination. No threats. Just dry protocol. The kind buried in vendor fine print they never read. I walked out the same back door I'd used for years on Sunday nights for maintenance. Same worn sneakers. Same laptop bag. The engine hummed on the drive home. And for the first time in years, I let myself exhale without the constant mental checklist. That first afternoon alone on my porch, coffee cooling untouched, felt almost sacred. No Slack pings demanding immediate fixes. No Brandon barging in with quick ideas that cost hours of cleanup. Just birdsong and silence. Meanwhile, the first subtle cracks appeared at Summit. The service display board began looping, appointments vanishing, new ones duplicating. Customers checked in only to disappear from screens. Techs rebooted 3 times before noticing oil changes marked complete before cars even arrived. Whispers started. Nothing catastrophic yet. Just enough to itch under the skin. I thought back to those early years building it all. Hired fresh out of a systems engineering program. I'd inherited a patchwork of 1990s software duct-taped together. Over 9 years, I'd modernized the entire platform, modular design, cloud-integrated APIs, fail-safe redundancies. I'd trained the team, documented every protocol, yet they treated me like the help who flipped switches. The gender dynamics were never spoken aloud but always present, competence viewed as threat rather than asset. I'd built exits before they could slam doors. The 50-hour clock had begun ticking the moment my badge failed. They had time. But time has a way of revealing what loyalty really means when the machine stops singing. By hour 13, I sat with my feet in the grass, watching clouds drift over the hill country. The first sip of unreheated coffee tasted like freedom laced with quiet vindication. Back at Summit, the hum had turned to static. Inventory reports showed parts scanned as pending arrival, while shelves sat full. A warranty VIN lookup froze mid-query. Junior managers printed reports for Greg only to find every third line replaced by no response. Reboots failed. The orchestration terminal, the heartbeat, displayed a single line when Jorge from internal support tried accessing it. Transfer requires acknowledgement from prior steward. I ignored the first unknown call that went to voicemail. Then the text from Jorge. Urgent.
Can we talk?
I pictured him sweating in the glass tech room, Brandon looming behind. They only noticed me when threads unraveled. I designed it that way, robust enough to run invisibly, brittle only when stewardship lapsed. Hour 19 brought weirder mismatches. Leasing paperwork loaded but signatures failed to trigger finance sync. Credit checks stalled indefinitely. Salespeople clutched half-printed contracts, staring at blinking cursors like they'd seen a ghost. Just print it and sign later doesn't work for 6-figure luxury vehicles with layered financing. Brandon barked orders across the floor. Fix it now. Jorge patched modules, restored backups, re-authenticated tokens. Each attempt hit the same wall. No bypass. The silence wasn't explosive, it was surgical. Threads snapping one by one. I remembered training Jorge 2 years ago on the exact checklist now buried in a forgotten config folder. Revoke. Acknowledge. Reling. Confirm. They dismissed it as non-flashy backend stuff. Now it read like scripture too late. Hour 28 sealed the no finalization zone. Deals hung in limbo. Customers shifted uncomfortably at desks. One family walked out mid-process. By hour 31, Alyssa from the primary financing bank arrived in her gray sedan.
Clipboard ready.
The pre-approval matrix sat blank. Rates missing. Flags misfiring. Hard refreshes. VPN overrides. Nothing. She made a call, then delivered the verdict, pausing approvals until sync integrity confirmed. 3 active deals froze instantly. Shouting erupted behind Greg's closed door. No more lectures on family. Now it was, what the hell happened to the system? And, you said it was covered. Finger-pointing began. Greg's voice cracked under pressure. Brandon sweated through his vest. They dug into directories. Found my protocol reminder document, 4 clean lines. Too bad they were hours late. The system wasn't crashing with drama, it was withdrawing consent. Quietly. Logically. The way I'd coded the reversion protocols. I drove 2 hours outside the city to a quiet lake. Feet in cool water. Phone on silent. Distant panic felt like echoes from another life. Flashbacks hit me there, late nights after Greg's family, events where I'd debug for my car. Times I'd shielded them from near misses during high-volume months. The subtle dismissals. Emily handles the tech stuff, as if infrastructure was magic rather than engineering I'd mastered while facing skepticism in every meeting. As a woman in dealership tech, I'd learned early. Document everything. Own the foundation legally. Never assume applause equals respect. The 50-hour mark approached like a slow sunrise revealing cracks in their facade. Hour 37 struck mid-sale. Down payments captured. Signatures done. Buyer smiling. Then the terminal flashed red. Payment gateway unavailable. Authorization expired. Not a crash. A deliberate lockout. Brandon shoved the finance intern aside. Logged into the admin panel like a frantic cowboy. Menu after menu. Heavy breathing. Eyes darting.
Submit.
Access denied. Invalid key signature. Multiple logins failed. He called legal. Interns crowded a conference room piecing vendor agreements. The orchestration framework's bones. Licensing.
APIs.
Key vaults.
VIN sync.
Credit matrices showed platform steward renewal pending. My name. Still active. Untransferred. Vendors replied uniformly. Cannot process without the steward. The sales floor became a graveyard of unfinished deals. Another customer refused to hand over payment without confirmation. Every API call hit the wall. By hour 40, direct vendor calls yielded the same. Most reps knew me personally from integrations and compliance calls. Sorry. We can't override without steward confirmation. Brandon's title. Greg's ownership. Meaningless against contractual reality. They'd assumed I'd always turn the keys. The illusion shattered. Hour 42. Greg's number lit my phone. I watched it ring. Deleted the voicemail without listening. He'd chosen shrimp towers and empty toasts over the person preventing collapse. At hour 44, sipping green tea in a hotel lounge across the state line, an email arrived. System migration proposal, confidential. From Sophia Reyes, GM at Horizon Motors, a respected regional chain. Brief. Sharp. Aware of the situation. Interested in full rebuild under their roof. Stewardship rights preserved. Sophia had understood infrastructure value years ago when I helped digitize her service ops. Handwritten notes. Budget line items for extensions. She noticed uptime stats others ignored. I replied simply, available tomorrow. Discretion guaranteed. Back at Summit. Customer lines hit 40-minute holds. Escalations shifted from appointment checks to, why is my paid-for car still here? And, bank never received lien clearance. A sold 2024 Tahoe for a retired vet failed DMV sync due to untriggered lien release. Delivery team turned away at the state office. Greg ordered a strategic pause on outbound deliveries, equivalent to hanging a "we're bleeding" sign. I stayed silent. No calls returned. The orchestration didn't scream. It flatlined gracefully. Modules handing off final heartbeats one by one. My rebuild blueprint, modular, vendor flexible, fail-safe, waited for a home that valued it. No more ribbon cuttings or stage toasts. Just function. Lonnie, a mentee in financing, texted, "It's chaos." Coming back, I didn't reply. This wasn't revenge. It was consequence. The family narrative had excluded the real family, the unseen engineers holding it together. Hour 48 approached as whispers turned to open panic. Scheduling returned blank fields. Payroll froze mid-roll. VIN pings timed out. The orchestrator loop closed with a final timestamp. Protocol reached. External access expired.
No alerts. Per design.
Greg's voicemail followed minutes later. Voice cracking. We didn't mean to insult you. If it's about the party. Misunderstanding. Please come in. I played it once. Replied by text. System expired. You were informed. Clean truth. The dealership's homepage soon showed temporary closure for system overhaul, with a stock smiling family photo, nothing about reversed payments. Delayed service. Vendor breach fees. or turned away customers. Greg stopped making calls. Key people had gone silent. Brandon got reassigned sideways to Business Optimization Strategy Advisor, corporate speak for failure too public to fire outright. He sat in a glass box at HQ struggling with unrelated migrations. I sat across from Sofia Reyes in Horizon's sunlit conference room, eucalyptus scent and whiteboards signaling new beginnings. She slid the contract over. My framework, stripped of Summit tags, would be rebuilt modularly under full transparency. Zero ownership games. I added one clause at the bottom: attendance at social events not required for employment or acknowledgement. Sophia chuckled and signed without hesitation. No photos. No press. Just handshake with someone who saw building as pillar, not decoration. 3 weeks later, a smaller Denton dealership announced a proprietary orchestration suite unifying logistics, finance, inventory, compliance. Buried in the release, systems stewardship provided by Emily Harper.
No bio. No hatzot.
That line said everything. The final hours brought no explosions, just cessation. At precisely the 50-hour mark, modules completed their last cycles. Scheduling blank. Payroll halted. Financing dark. Registration pings dead. The platform had listened long enough. I reflected on the porch weeks later. The lake breeze carrying peace. 9 years of building something real, only noticed in absence. The hypocrisy of family loyalty that discarded the woman, ensuring no collapse. Gender biases that forced quiet exits. Systems don't need applause, just competent stewardship refusing to let things fail unseen. Brandon rebranded failure. Greg faced silent report card. Summit bled quietly. I moved forward at Horizon. Framework thriving where valued. No parties required. The question lingers: when the invisible work stops, who really owns the machine? And what happens when builders finally walk?